Hi, this is Venkatesh from Naresh IT Technologies. In this video today, let us have a small discussion on object cloning, and means the process of creating duplicate copy of an object. What kind of duplicate copy? Bit by bit duplicate copy of an object. Sir, what is the advantage of this object clone? Whenever you want to take the backup of your object, we concentrate on object clone. If not, this object cloning will save the time. Whenever if you use new operator method using some constructor and anyway, if you use new operator method, we are creating the initial object creation from the class. I want to create one object which is the current state of the object. If I want to create one current state of the object, we go with cloning process. So now in this video, I will be concentrating on how to create one duplicate copy of an object. For example, like this now. Whenever I want to create duplicate copy an object, we will take the support of built-in method available from java.lang.object class known as clone method. This object class is the parent class of all the classes in your Java application. Parent class of how many means whatever the classes available in the Java application, they are automatically extended from java.lang.object class. And this object class is having one method known as clone method. So with the support of this clone method, we are going to perform cloning process. Sir, what is this cloning process means? The definition says that the process of creating the duplicate copy of existing object, we are calling it as cloning process. This cloning process is performed with the support of clone method available from java.lang.object class, and this cloning process will be monitored by a separate interface available from java.lang package known as clonable interface. I will take the support of clonable interface by using clone method. I am going to perform one object cloning now. Example, I will take one class like this. I am calling it as employee class. Employee class. In this employee class, I am taking some string name, string ID. I took two fields now. I am going to load this data onto this class by using constructor, and I had one method known as toString method. And the first step is nothing but this is one constructor. Using this constructor, I am going to load the data onto this instance variables name and ID of an employee. I want to perform cloning process on the object of this class. Whenever you want to perform cloning process on the object of this user defined class, now this class must be implemented from clonable interface. That is the step one. So we had one interface known as clonable. This clonable interface is available from java.lang package. So whatever the user defined class we have been taken, the user defined class must be implemented from clonable. This user defined class must be implemented from clonable. Implements from clonable. So this is the first step you have to do. Already we have been just now said that whatever the classes we declare within the Java application, these classes automatically extended from the superclass object, means the object class is automatically linked. So whatever the class here, this is automated link. Whatever the classes we declared, they have been extended from object class. And whenever I want to perform cloning process, now the user defined class must be implemented from clonable interface. Now in this user defined class, I must take one method, maybe this overriding method known as clone method. This clone method is an overriding method of this method. Here already in object class clone method is available. I am taking one method as clone method. This clone method return type is employee, and this method means I declared one employee return type method which is of clone now. This is the overriding method of this clone. Now in this I am going to perform return super dot clone. I am going to call this method super dot clone. So simply the statement is nothing but the step one, the user defined class must be implemented from java.lang.clonable interface. In step 2, you have to declare one overriding method with name clone, and this clone method is going to call super.clone method for process. Now if I create one object now, I am creating one object. Imagine this is one object now. This is one object. I am creating one object for employee class. This object is nothing but original object. I am calling it as original object. The meaning of original object is generated from the class. Generated from the class. And this object I am giving one name known as obj1. I am giving one name as obj1. So I given one name for this employee class, and this object is generated from the class. I am calling it as obj1. Now whatever the fields are available here, non-static fields, I am calling it as instance variable, they will come here. But while object creation, I am going to pass this name and ID as parameter. While I am creating object, I will pass name and ID as parameters. Whenever I pass parameter while object creation, name and ID, they have been binded into this instance variables. So they come as some data here like this. Imagine the object has been created with the values known as name as nit.v and ID is A123 I created. Now this method what is available here, it comes here. Now the toString method is available here and this clone method is available here. So finally this is the original object created. This is the original object created. Now in this original object I had the values for this instance variables name and ID is A123, and this toString method what I declared within the class binded to object available within the object, and the clone method which is employee return type method, overriding method of your object class, also available within the object, right, because they are non-static methods. Non-static methods available within the object. Now obj1 is having the contents like two variables, one toString method and one clone method. Now whenever I want to perform one cloning process, I must call this method only. obj1.toClone means whenever I want to perform obj1.clone method, whenever I perform this call, I am calling it as method call. Whenever I perform this method call here, obj1.toClone, whenever I perform this method call here, now this method call will create one object. This method call will create one object. The object is created from this object only. One separate object is created, cloned object. One separate object is created with a cloned object, right, by using obj1.toClone. This is creating one object. That object which has been created, the data what is available will be loaded. So the object is created from this object. So this object created here, it has one reference. One reference is available here, object reference. So whatever the cloning process done here, the contents is loaded there. Name is loaded here and ID is loaded here. toString method and clone method. If you observe clearly, the instance variables what is available in the original object, they have been copied here. The toString method copied here. Even this clone method copied here. Means it is one duplicate copy generated by using obj1.toClone. Whenever if I call obj1.toClone method, whenever I call obj1.toClone method, one duplicate copy of this object is created. Why this object is created? Why the duplicate copy is created for this object? Because I call this method from this object. The duplicate copy is created for the object from where the method has been called. So I called obj1.clone method, it creates one duplicate copy. The duplicate copy will contain all the contents available from this object. and after the loading has been done, this reference we are loading onto one more reference variable obj2. I am loading this reference onto obj2. Means I created one copy from the object with the support of obj1.toClone. In the process of performing this action, it raises one exception, compile time exception or checked exception. We are calling it as clone not supported exception. You are getting one exception known as clone not supported exception. I will get one exception known as clone not supported exception, and the exception we are calling it as compile time exception. We are going to represent to the compiler by using throws keyword. So final statement is nothing but whenever I want to perform cloning process user defined class object, the user defined class must be implemented from java.lang.clonable interface, and this user defined class must be declared with a method with the name clone and employee return type. Means what? The user defined class return type, and which is of overriding method of your object class, and this method is going to call the clone method for action. Nothing but super.clone I am declaring here return type. So whatever the object I created, I am calling it as original object. So in the process of generating this original object, the contents nothing but the non-static members are available within the object. So these non-static variables are available here. I am loading the data onto these non-static variables with the support of constructor. So the constructor is executed. Whenever I executed this constructor means what? I am passing the parameter while object creation and binded into this instance variables. Now the object variables will get the values here, and whenever I want to display, I will use toString method. Whenever I want to display it, whenever I want to perform cloning process, I will take the support of this clone method. So these are the object creations done from your original object, and I am calling this method as obj1.clone method. Whenever I call this method, automatically it generates one object known as duplicate copy. The duplicate copy has been generated from the object, not from the class. If a object is generating from the class, we are calling it as original object, and the object is generating from the object, we are calling it as duplicate object or cloned object. So this is the cloned object generated whenever we execute obj1.toClone method, right? So in this process, if you observe, this object is created from the class directly, this object created from the object. So we created object. What is the advantage means, whenever you want to create one object from the initial class, we take the support of new operator or any other process. So whenever you want to create object of current status of the object, then we take the support of cloning process. By cloning process, we can create one object of an object at the current status, and this object is nothing but one backup we can take from the object. So final statement is nothing but here one object is created from the object, not from the class, and this process will be monitored by one interface known as clonable interface. This clonable interface we are calling it as empty interface because which do not have any members within that interface, and this interface is going to monitor the cloning process. This process will raise one compile time exception or checked exception known as clone not supported exception. So this is the theoretical analysis of object cloning. So let me show this practically by running one small program. So object cloning means the process of creating the duplicate copy of an object. So let me show this practically. Just now I shown one theoretical concept by drawing one small diagram where I took one class known as employee. Let me show by practical analysis employee. I am taking one class employee. I am taking one class employee. What is the first step now? The user defined class must be implemented from clonable interface. Must be implemented from clonable interface. The first step is nothing but the employee class must be implemented from clonable. The meaning is the user defined class must be implemented from clonable interface. This is the step 1. So in this employee class I am taking two fields now, string name and ID. I am using one constructor employee, string name, string ID. So, I am using two fields just now I shown on the board now. This is name ID and I am loading the data through constructor. Constructor is executed to load the data onto this instance variables name and ID. So, I am using one toString method. And this toString method also, this is overriding method. This is also overrides java.lang.object.toString. The toString method, whenever if we declare toString method within the user defined class, we can display the content of the object by the object name directly. So, that is the advantage of this toString method. I am using toString method to display the data, and the step 2 is nothing but take one method that is of employee clone. This is step 2. This clone method is going to return clone method. Whenever I declared one method is toClone method, which is of employee return type method, and this method is one override method. Overrides java.lang.object.clone means what? Object class automatically extended into all the classes available in the Java application. In this process, the object class has been linked here. So, whenever I use this clone method here, this becomes one override method. Already I said whenever if we try to use this process, cloning process raises one compile time exception known as clone not supported exception. See, unhandled exception type clone not supported exception, raising one exception known as clone not supported. Whenever we have one clone not supported compile time exception, we are going to report to the compiler by the keyword known as throws. I am going to write my throws clone not supported exception. Clone not supported exception. I am going to show this as clone not supported exception. So, if you observe clearly, whenever I want to perform this cloning process, it raises one compile time exception known as clone not supported exception. I am going to report to the compiler because compile time exception through using throws keyword. Then after writing this throws clone not supported exception, now it removes this compile time exception, nothing but error will go. And finally, this is the method signature we write like this: public employee clone throws clone not supported, and this method if you call it, this is going to perform one cloning process on existing object. So, let me go down by step 3. In the step 3, what I am going to do is, in step 3 I am going to call this method. Whenever I want to call this method, I must create the original object. Now, I am creating original object. Here I am reading the data now. I am trying to read the data. System.out.println, enter the employee name. String name is equal to s dot, next line. Enter the employee ID. Employee ID. So, I created name, employee name. So, I am reading employee name, employee ID. I am creating one virtual object now. Now, employee obj1 equal to new employee of, I am passing employee name and I am passing emp ID as parameter. Whenever I pass name and employee ID as parameter. I am executing this parameterized constructor indirectly. This is passed on to the parameterized constructor. Through this parameterized constructor, we are loading onto this variables name and ID. So finally, we are creating one object. So let us display this object now. System.out.println. I am trying to display from original object. I am trying to display from original object. So whenever I want trying to display from original object, system.out.println, I am printing obj1. Whenever I print obj1, it has a toString method available here now. Using this toString method, we can get the answer. This is displayed, and we are going to display the hash code also. System.out.println hash code of obj1 equal to plus obj1 dot hash code. One numeric number which is generated while object creation, we are calling it as hash code. Whenever you want to display this hash code, we take the support of hash code method available from java.lang.object class. Why I am displaying this hash code means I am going to perform one cloning process now. I am going to perform one cloning process. In cloning process, I am creating one duplicate copy. I want to know whether this duplicate copy is created or not. So I am going to display the hash code and check it whether this duplicate copy is created or not. So in this process, I am displaying the hash code and check it. Now I am performing this step 3 now. Example. Now I must call that method and obj1 dot clone process. I am calling one method. Whenever I call this method and obj dot clone, very important point. I am calling this clone method from this obj1. Whenever I call this clone method for cloning, this I am calling it as cloning. So here step 3, whenever I call this clone method, this clone method will perform cloning process on obj1, and this clone method is having some return type, means what? The super.clone will perform cloning process on this obj1 and returns the reference onto obj2, means we are holding back as obj2. The obj2 must be declared as employee. So this is the process we follow. Whenever you call the method obj1.clone, this method performs the cloning process and creates the object, and the object reference is loaded onto obj2. That's the theory here. Now again it raises one compile time exception, clone not supported. So again it comes here because I am calling the clone method now here. So again it raises, and again we are going to report to the compiler by using throws keyword. We are recording it as throws clone not supported exception. Again we are going to throw it. So finally I created one object here, that is obj2, which I am calling it as cloned object. I want to display and check it whether the content is available within the obj2 or not, whether the different hash code is created or not. So in this process I am displaying it out. System.out.println. So I am trying to display from cloned object. So in this process, system.out.println obj2. I am displaying this obj2 directly. This is, if I get the answer, this is the proof to say that toString method also available within the obj2. So here I am printing this hash code. System.out.println hash code of obj2 equal to plus obj2 dot hash code. Now this is finally I am displaying one cloned object. This cloned object is obj2. Why I am calling it as cloned object? I am calling obj1 dot clone. This clone method is called now. This clone method is calling super dot clone. The clone method is coming from object class, and performs cloning process on original object obj1. After creating one object, returns the reference of that object onto obj2, and this obj2 we are calling it as duplicate copy or cloned copy. So let me display now. Now I must get one different hash code here. What is the statement available in your Java language? When the object is created, one numeric number is generated. The numeric number we are calling it as hash code. Now if obj2 is created as a duplicate copy, one different hash code should be generated. So let me run this program. Enter the employee name now, NIT.v and A123. So this is the display from original object. If you see the original object now, name is NIT.v, ID is A123, hash code of obj1 is 331211026. Means what? obj1 is created, because that is the original object generated from the class. Whenever you want to say original object, the objects are created or generated from the class directly. We are calling it as original objects. Now I am calling it as cloned object. Cloned object means what? We are not using new operator to generate this object. So we are getting one name here, ID here, and the hash code is 219333161. Means what? This hash code is different. This hash code is different, indicates that two objects are created. First one is original object, second one is duplicate object. This is the proof to say that one duplicate object is created with the same data available from obj1. This is the process of cloning. So let me repeat the process in outline now. Whenever you want to create or whenever you want to generate duplicate copy of an user defined class, duplicate copy of object of an user defined class, the user defined class must be implemented from java.lang.clonable interface. That is a step 1, you have to follow it. In step 2, it must be declared with one clone method which is of employee return type. We are calling it as override method, and this clone method is going to return one reference of the object which is created by using super.clone method. We are calling this super.clone method. It is going to create one object and returns the reference of that object by this method, and in this process raises one compile time exception or checked exception known as clone not supported. This compile time exception must be reported to the compiler by using throws keyword. So finally the statement provided here is nothing but the method signature has like this. This is user defined class name and clone method throws clone not supported exception. This is going to return one reference of the object which is created by using super.clone method. So this is a step 2 now. Whenever I created my original object means creating object from the class. We are calling it as original object. So I am using new operator process. Whenever I use new operator process, the object is generating from the class. I am calling it as obj1 is an original object. So I will display this original object and check it out. Why? Because I want to check myself whether the object is created or not. So hash code is the proof to say that object has been created for obj1. Now I am performing some cloning process. Whenever you want to perform cloning process on obj1, simply obj1.clone method, call that method which has been declared in step 2. When this obj1.clone method is called, automatically the cloning process is performed on obj1 object. In the process, one object is created, the reference of that object is returned to the LHS, that is obj2. obj2 will become your cloned object. I am checking once again and displaying it whether the content is available or not by using obj2 display and obj2.hash code. So this is the layout in creating duplicate copy of an object. Now what about this clonable process, sir? Why you are using this clonable? The clone method is coming from object class, and why you are using this clonable? So let me remove this clonable interface and run it out. Now I am not taking the support of clonable interface, just I am running it. See there, clone not supported. Means what? The cloning process is monitored by a separate interface known as clonable interface available from java.lang package. Sir, what this clonable interface contains? I want to see it, sir. What this clonable interface contains? Let me open from the library and check it out. What this clonable interface contains. If you observe clearly, clonable interface is not having any members. We are calling it as empty interface. The interface without any members, we are calling it as empty interface. This interface just monitors the cloning process. The interface which do not have any members, we are calling it as tagging, tagging interface or marking interface. We can call it as marking or tagging interface. This interface participates in monitoring the cloning process. So finally, one object has been cloned, right? And in the next video, we'll be concentrating on types of cloning process. The types of cloning process are shallow cloning and deep cloning. We are concentrating on types of cloning process. This example program is to demonstrate a normal cloning process which is performed in creating one duplicate copy of an user defined object. So I will come with the next video in demonstrating deep cloning and shallow cloning. We are calling it as types of cloning process. Thank you very much.